All right, well, it being 1 o'clock, we will call to order the March 1st, 2021 meeting of the Albemarle County Architectural Review Board. This meeting is being held pursuant to and in compliance with Ordinance 20-A16, an ordinance to ensure the continuity of government during the COVID disaster. A quorum is present. Members present electronically are myself, Dave Vanderwerf, Frank Hancock, Chris Henningsen, and Frank Stoner. Fred Missel will be absent today. Opportunities for public access to this meeting are posted on the county's website at the county calendar. The public has real-time audio-visual access to this meeting over Zoom, and real-time audio access over phone, both is provided in the lawfully posted meeting notice. This meeting is being recorded and will be made available on the county's website. This online meeting is a public record and subject to disclosure under the Freedom of Information Act. For applicants and attendees, we have a number of applicants and project representatives attending today's meeting. Carolyn Schaefer is our recording secretary and may need to contact you during this meeting, so please check the chat box and respond as needed. For all speakers, when it's your turn to speak, please first state your name for the record. And for everyone participating today, please keep your microphone muted unless you are speaking. For applicants making presentations, please note that your presentations are limited to a total of 15 minutes, which can be divided among the team members for any application as you see fit. I will note we have a very full agenda today, and so to the extent everyone can be very succinct in your presentation, it will be appreciated to allow us to fully hear all the applications. Now we'll turn to disclosures. Do any board members have anything to disclose today?
Yes, Dave, I need to recuse myself from ARB-2021-07 Starbucks on Seminole Lane.
Thank you, Frank. Let's see, Carolyn, are there any members of the public wishing to speak on any matters not on the agenda?
No, there isn't.
Thank you. There are no items on the consent agenda, so we'll turn to regular review items. We have 6 on the agenda today. Chris Taggart and Margaret Malashevsky will be making presentations for these. The first item is ARB 2021-06 Airport Parking Lot Elevator and Stair Replacement. Margaret?
Are you able to see my slide? Great.
Yes.
Okay, this is a proposal to remove, oh, sorry, hold on just a second. Gotta make one more adjustment. There we go. Okay. This is a proposal to remove the central parking lot elevator and flanking stairs and to construct 2 elevator pavilions at the Charlottesville-Albemarle Airport, which is located at the western end of the Airport Road entrance corridor. The new elevator pavilions, which are located north and south of the central structure, are located approximately 650 feet and 900 feet from the Airport Road entrance corridor. Although this distance mitigates impacts to a large degree, the pavilion structures do have increased mass and height, and that will make them visible from some vantage points on the corridor. In 2016, the plan to replace the steps leading from the parking lot to the terminal was approved. The steps were replaced in the same location using materials matching those already on site. And in January of 2019, the ARB reviewed an application to replace the existing central elevator and stairs. That project was approved, but it was not constructed, and the project that's being reviewed today is intended to replace that proposal. The design of the elevator pavilions and canopy additions is consistent in form, material, and color with the existing terminal building. And with this level of compatibility, the new construction is expected to have an appropriate appearance. The proposal calls for the addition of masonry walls to infill the patio lookout wall following demolition of that central elevator. And the applicant has confirmed that that new material will match existing, but the plans don't state that. So we've recommended that the plan be revised to clarify that the matching material will be used. Project areas are adjacent to an existing parking lot, and some landscaping is proposed to be removed. The landscape plan does not detail the trees or shrubs to be removed, but it does show new trees and shrubs to be planted. New landscaping in these areas would help integrate the structures into the surroundings. A landscape schedule was not included in this plan set, and we've made recommendations regarding identification of landscaping to be removed and providing a landscape schedule. There's also new lighting associated with the new elevator structures. Light levels reach 26.9 foot candles, and maintaining a maximum of 20-foot candles would be consistent with most non-display lots in the entrance quarters. So we've made that recommendation. We've also recommended that the applicant consider revising the color temperature of the new fixtures to produce a warmer light, but the color temperature that is proposed is consistent with other light approvals at this site. Our recommendation is for approval with the conditions listed in the staff report. I'd be happy to try to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Margaret. Turn to members for questions. Frank Hancock, any questions?
No, I don't have any questions. Thanks, Margaret.
Thanks, Donna.
Nope, I don't have any. Thanks.
Chris?
No questions for me. Thanks, Margaret.
Great. Yeah, thank you, Margaret. None for me either. We'll ask the applicant for their presentation now.
Okay, this is Chris Jager. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay, I work for Talbot & Bright. I was hoping to see Melinda Crawford on the sign-in. I see Jason DeVillier from the airport. I'm not sure if they're having connection issues, but just on a brief summary from my part, the previous entry pavilion project did not move forward. Oh, there's Melinda.
Hi. Would you like me to speak to it?
Sure.
We had previously approved or had gone before the ARB to approve an entry pavilion project that was basically a structure that would have included internal escalator, stairwell, 2 elevators, and some circulation area. And it was approved. We went out to bid on it. As you know, the airport is financially self-sufficient. And with the exception that some of our grants are funded by the FAA and some are funded by the Virginia Department of Aviation. We were seeking assistance from the FAA with this project. When we went out to bid with it, we had anticipated that we probably have a budget of about 3 million. I think the project came in over 5 million. We went back to the FAA and we asked that we value engineer and then we look at the project to figure out what was in the best interest of Cho and being able to fund it. So with the help of Talbot & Bright engineering firm, Chris Jager on board and our staff, we went back and we looked at it. The primary issue that we wanted to make sure that we had was right now we have 1 elevator that goes from our terminal building to our long-term parking lot. And just to put it into perspective, our long-term parking lot has about 760 spaces in it, which is our primary public parking area at the airport. But we only had 1 elevator, and if that elevator went down, we had no ADA access to that parking lot. We were looking at creating a redundant ADA access to that parking lot by installing 2 elevator systems. In 2014-15 timeframe, we had put in 2 sets of stairs in the long-term lot, basically a little bit to the north and the south of the central entry area to the terminal. We were looking at this project to value engineering. One of the ways that we wanted to make sure that we provided the best access to our passengers was to put an elevator next to, or an elevator structure next to each one of those sets of existing stairs, which is slightly, again, to the north and the south of the center of the terminal. That is what is presented before you now, with a really nice walkway that would go, that would cover the steps, and then also a really nice covered walkway that would take you from that area over to the walkway at the front of the terminal on curbside.
Thank you. Is there any other presentation from the applicant? I'll ask board members if they have any questions for the applicant, starting with Frank Stoner.
No, Dade, I don't have many questions. Thanks.
Frank Hancock.
No questions.
Chris?
I do not have any questions either.
No questions for me either. Thank you for the presentation. Carolyn, are there any members of the public wishing to comment?
No, there are not.
We'll enter discussion. Frank Stoner, your thoughts?
I think it's a nice proposal. I think it's considerably less intrusive than the proposal we already approved. I'm not sure I have any good suggestions for improvement. I think it's very well done. I am curious, somewhat unrelated, is there any expectation that over time that parking lot would get an extra deck added to it? And if so, how would that impact these elevator stair assemblies?
May I speak to that?
Sure.
All right. There are not any plans to put a second level on that existing structure. Again, that structure, that parking lot holds the majority of our public parking spots right now. I think we have about 1,300 total parking spots with the different lots around the airport. There was in our capital budget a parking lot structure, a parking structure, about a 4-level structure that's in our budget, has not been brought forth with anything, but it would be for a future multi-level garage that would be slightly to the north of the existing long-term lot.
Gotcha. Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank Hancock. Your thoughts?
I agree with Frank Stoner. I think it's a really nice proposal. I like that it's two kind of flanking the ends, and I think it's, it's nice and airy and light where it could just be a mass of an elevator shaft, but I think you really paid attention to kind of that experience of arrival. And yeah, I think it's a nice proposal. I think it's entirely appropriate.
Thank you, Frank. Chris?
Yeah, I agree. I was not part of the approval process for the previous, but I think this is an improvement over that. This is very well integrated into the existing fabric of the airport, and I think it's very appropriate.
Thank you, Chris. And I agree with my fellow board members. I think it's a nice improvement over the previously approved proposal, and probably provides extra convenience to the extent the elevators will be closer to folks in more areas of the parking lot. So Margaret, could we look at your recommendations?
Our recommendation is for approval with the conditions that were listed in the staff report. Those, I think, were mentioned, each of those in the presentation. So the masonry infill, the standard equipment note, 2 lighting issues, and 3 landscape-related comments.
Thank you. Do any members see any need for any revision? Hearing none, does anyone care to make a motion?
I'll move for approval of certificate of appropriateness for ARB 2021-06 airport parking lot elevator and stair replacement with conditions listed in the staff report.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Carolyn, would you call the vote?
Yes, Mr. Stoner,
Aye.
Mr. Hancock,
Aye.
Mr. Hensington,
Aye.
Mr. Vanderwerf.
Aye. Great, thank you. All right, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, ARB 2021-07, Starbucks 2231 Seminole Lane. Chris? I believe you're muted, Chris, if you're speaking.
Sorry about that. Are you all viewing the correct screen now?
Yep.
All right. The application I'm presenting on today is the review of architecture initial site plan to construct a 1,138 square foot building to accommodate a drive-through Starbucks in addition to associated site improvements. The site is located at 2231 Seminole Lane. Since 2003, the ARB has reviewed a proposal for alterations to the facade of the existing office building and landscaping changes to the site. Staff did have a number of comments on the site, but none of them were significant enough for keeping us from recommending approval of the initial plan. So I'm going to focus on the 4 points that were listed as the primary points discussion in the staff report. Regarding the building design, it is contemporary in nature and displays only a basic connection to historic architecture of the county, notably in the materials and the use of storefront windows between a masonry base and a metal canopy with a sign band above. However, the brick is proposed in a stack bond, which is a historic pattern, but is less common, and in a medium shade of gray. As viewed from the entrance corridor, human scale is enhanced by the metal canopy column screen structure in the outdoor seating area. However, the human scale does not transition to the east end of the elevation, where the architectural detailing is reduced. Staff is recommending revising the design to establish a base for the walls that is evident on the sides of the building to reinforce the historic base middle top wall pattern and potentially decrease the utilitarian appearance. The south elevation shows a mural east of the bump out. The design is currently conceptual, but the applicant would like to place mural in the location shown. Without the mural, this portion of the elevation would appear blank due to the lack of architectural detailing. The north elevation east of the drive-through window also lacks architectural detailing, leading to a blank appearance. Staff is recommending revising the elevations to incorporate architectural detailing to relieve blankness. Regarding the landscaping for the site, due to an 18-foot access easement in the Route 29 right-of-way, the parcel's frontage landscaping is set back approximately 70 feet from the Route 29 pavement. The plan shows 3 London plane trees with interspersed ornamentals along the western perimeter, but the spacing exceeds 40 feet near the travelways at the north and south end of the sites, or north and south ends, and 1 additional tree is needed to meet the requirements. Between the parking area and the drive-through travelway, a row of shrubs is shown. Providing trees in addition to shrubs shown would help integrate the walkways, drive-through travel lane, and related features into the site. Between the northern perimeter of the site and the drive-through travelway, the row of shrubs continues ending near the exit to the drive-through. A row of trees is present on the adjacent property, but providing trees along this end of the site would help mitigate the appearance of the drive-through travelway, stacked cars, and related features independent of all-site landscaping. Along the southern perimeter of the site, shrubs shown at the base of the retaining walls, but abruptly end at the entrance to the drive-through lane near the dumpster. Due to the retaining wall and an existing easement running through the planning area along this perimeter of the site, trees may not be possible, but shrubs should be provided to help to offset the impacts of the retaining wall and drive-through lane. Lastly, regarding the shrubs proposed for the site, a single species proposed for the total quantity, which would not support a healthy landscape, and the proposed plant is too large for the planting area along the retaining walls. Staff is recommending revising the landscape plan to increase plant diversity and to either increase the depth of the planting bed along the retaining walls, or to revise the shrubs proposed for this area to one with an upright habit and a mature size suited to the available planting area. Staff recommends the changes listed in the staff report to be addressed with the final site plan submittal. I'd be happy to answer any questions you all may have.
Thank you, Chris. Starting with Chris, do you have any questions?
No, I don't have any questions. Thanks.
Thank you. Frank Hancock? Frank Hancock, do you have any questions? Oh, sorry, he's recused. Excuse me. That's right. Yes, so Frank's done. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, Chris, do you have a site drawing that shows the properties on either side, just a kind of a bigger picture of the site and the adjoining sites and the relationship to the service road 29? I'm having a hard time picturing exactly. What's going on around it.
I don't have a site, but can you view my screen? No.
Yes. So what's to the south? Can you scroll down a little bit? Okay, that's the sign company.
Yes.
So there's a lot, there's a developable lot.
Correct. Yes.
Gotcha, okay. And then to the rear, there's a pretty significant grade change, as I recall.
Correct, yes.
Yeah, okay. So the real estate 3 building goes away in this scenario.
Correct.
Yeah, okay, that's great, thanks, I appreciate it.
Chris, my question is just regarding the mural. Are there other examples of buildings approved with murals by the ARB, or what are the precedents for that topic? And Margaret may have perspective on it as well.
I cannot think of an example of a mural that's been approved by the ARB. Well, to back up, I can't think of an example of one that's been proposed.
What about the wall at Fifth Street Station?
That is not visible from the entrance quarter street. It's visible from Fifth Street in the city, but not from the entrance quarter in the county.
And is there any, would they typically be governed by the sign ordinance, or is there any other ordinance that would typically apply?
It would only be considered a sign if it includes an image of something related to the business that's in the building. If that mural had a coffee cup on it, coffee bean, then we could call it a sign. But if it has no relationship to that, then it wouldn't be considered a sign.
Thank you. And then Chris, one other question, I think this may be more for the applicant. The travel way at the south part of the lot is 30 feet wide. Is that a normal or larger width than expected in planning?
I'm actually not sure. It seems wide, but it may be related to other requirements.
Well, thank you. Great. Well, we'll turn to the applicant for their presentation.
All right. Thank you, everyone. I'm Craig Kotarski with Timmons Group, representing the applicant. We're going to break up our presentation into 3 parts. I'm first going to introduce Adam Updike with Starbucks, representing them. He's going to give a little bit of an intro of the project in whole, turn it back to me, and I'll talk a little bit about the site. And then I'll turn it over to Ross with Starbucks, and he's going to talk a little bit about the building specifically. So Adam, I'm going to pass it off to you.
Thank you, Craig. And Chris, thank you. What a fantastic intro. Thank you, board, for your time today. What we're going to be presenting today is what is known as, for Starbucks, a drive-through only facility. What what this is it's going to be very similar to a typical Starbucks drive-through facility that you're accustomed to. However, there will not be an indoor seating function. The indoor seating is actually in this application been pushed to the exterior. So we're going to have a large, beautiful covered outdoor patio experience with really focusing on the landscape to deliver that experience for our patrons. As part of that patio experience, we will have a pickup window. That pickup window is also for patrons to either pick up their pre-placed mobile order if they feel they need to get out of the car. We'll likely be offering curbside here as well by the time this is open. And then primarily our main channel here is going to be a drive-through, which we will go through in detail on the site plan. There are two other drive-through only locations in Virginia at this time. Right now we have one on Prince William Parkway up in Prince William, Virginia, which is about 75 miles north, and to the southeast on Virginia Beach Boulevard in Virginia Beach, we also have a drive-through only facility. Neither one of those have the large covered patio seating experience, so a little bit different of experience with those if you're familiar with either one. But with that, I'd hand it back over to you, Craig, to run through the site plan.
I had to find where the mute button went after I shared my screen. So sorry about that. But just to go through, as Adam said, this is a drive-through only concept. So there is some parking, but it is limited, mainly for people to come, pick up and go. As you will see, there is a drive-through that has a queue of 11 vehicles in it. The idea is that we want to make sure that as vehicles come in, that they have ample room to be able to stack and not come out off of the site. Additionally, with regards to staff comments and some of the landscaping, we think generally we can accommodate most of the requests that were there. Obviously, we also intend to come back with some material selections and updates with regards to the dumpster enclosure and the retaining walls. The other thing I would note that was mentioned is in regards to the opening of this entrance. We'll go back and take a look at that. There may be the ability for us to reduce that width to some extent. That may also help us in sort of opening up a little bit more space with regards to landscaping along the frontage, as staff pointed out. The one item I would mention is that in the area in the front of the building, we certainly will go back and see what we can do in regards to some of the landscaping. We have a couple utilities that are competing that are in that space with regards to some detention systems, as well as some sanitary lines that are coming in there that actually are serving off-site. It's our understanding that we actually have a sanitary line running through here that goes to the High-Tech Signs store. And so we are serving that through the site here. But generally speaking, we did not have any questions in regards to staff's comments from a site perspective. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Ross to talk a little bit more about the building.
Okay, 1 second here.
And before Ross gets started, sorry, I didn't introduce myself. My name is Adam Updike. I'm the store development manager at Starbucks, and I'll let Ross introduce himself.
Yes, my name is Ross Downing, store design manager for the Starbucks design team. And 1 second here. I have an issue with the share screen. Okay. Is there a 3D view up for everyone? Okay. So there are a couple of points that were made, but to kind of just do a quick overview, when we were looking at the design was to utilize brick, and then there are detail moments of wood tones that were the idea behind the conduit to the vernacular. With that in mind, we wanted to emphasize the tone and texture of the building, but utilizing also lighting fixtures kind of in two different fashions on both the south and the north facades, one being wall sconces and then the other is uplighting at the mural wall. Let's see here, this will go. Don't have it on this view. For both of those facades, again, right, creating some drama between both the environments and experience for the site and for the customers for both day and evening operations. We're looking really at the mural to be a unique connection that we can do with the city and emphasize the local community to develop that. Again, that what's showing in the elevations currently is a placeholder. But typically that's what we'll want to do is find a way to make that connection between Starbucks, but then also represent the local community as well. So the detail work that goes with the canopy is unique to this project as well. The way that it was designed, we were looking at it as a way to create the human scale and comfort of a destination and zone. So as you're approaching the store, let's call it from the parking lot. Here we go. So from the parking lot side here is to kind of differentiate between what's the utilitarian side of the building versus the zone that directs you to your destination and develops with that experience and the warmth that starts to carry between the warm undertones of the wood. And then it's just that overall lighting experience. This is the area that gets emphasized most against the street front as well. And so want to take the opportunity to create that environment that is both engaged, both in human scale as you're there on site, as well as from the corridor and vehicular traffic as well. So these are just a few of the views that were updated to show the environment and kind of how the building is not trying to kind of make itself proud of the site, but to show that it's becoming kind of one in the site and integrated in through the tones and the materiality. With that said, I'll turn it over back to Craig.
Thanks, Ross. So in general, we're open for questions and to talk through some of these items. Certainly we can focus on the 4 items that Chris mentioned at the end of his presentation, on the western edge, as well as separating the parking from the drive-through area. We don't foresee any issues of, working and adding and enhancing some of the landscape there. But certainly we can talk through those as well as some of the architectural items as well.
And one other call out that I would add is, as some of you may be aware, we're working at 101 Main Street and potentially adding a mural down there. So we are working with Alan Guthinsky through the Charlottesville Mural Project. Our intent would more than likely be the same here to, if there was an appetite for a mural, to keep it local, keep it amongst the Charlottesville community to represent the building and the mural.
Thank you for your presentation. Do members have any questions for the applicant, starting with Chris?
Yeah, I guess the mural is kind of such an important part of the scheme. Is there going to be an opportunity to see at least a conceptual version of that mural, or at least what's contemplated for that prior to giving final approval?
Absolutely. Ross, I don't want to speak for you here, but I believe the mural presented is just primarily a placeholder to kind of show intent. That being said, we would kind of harking back to the previous comment, we would want to add some relevancy to the mural, especially given that there is a culture, if you will, of murals in the area. So we'd want to make sure that we're tying into that. So really the idea, we're introducing the idea to find out if it's something that makes sense to continue to focus on, or if it's just, kind of a no-go.
Thank you. Chris, do you have other questions?
No, I personally, think the idea of the mural is kind of intriguing. So I may be in the minority, but I kind of like the idea. So I would just be interested to see, more specifics about it before kind of, rendering a final opinion on it. But.
Thank you, Chris. Frank Stoner, do you have any questions?
I'm wondering if whoever has that rendered elevation that includes sort of a conceptual representation of the mural, if we could look at that again. I'm not sure I saw that when it was posted.
Craig, are you able to
Ross,
share
is
that?
that something you have? Or?
Let me see. I can pull it up.
I have it. I can probably pull it up quick. Let's see. Reviewing.
Okay, got it. Got it. That's great. Thanks. I tend to agree with Chris. I like the idea and concept. The devil's in the details, I guess. To exactly what the subject matter is and how it's rendered, but I like the idea.
Okay.
I don't think I have any other questions. There was one rendered version of the canopy that showed on the drive-through side. It looked like it was white, and I'm guessing maybe that was just an oversight in the rendering.
Is that in reference to the underside or to
no to the edge of it?
No. The edge would match the green tones.
Would be green. Yeah, that's what I figured. That's great.
Great, thank you, Frank. I don't think I have any additional questions for the applicant. Carolyn, are there any members of the public wishing to comment?
No, sir, there isn't.
Thank you. Well, why don't we just continue then on that line with discussion? Chris and Frank, anything you'd like to add to your prior comments?
I don't think so. I don't have a problem with the architecture. I mean, it's contemporary. I think it's proportionally feels good on the site. I think the scale of the building feels good. I like the mix of materials. I like the screen in front. I think that's I think it's really nicely done, the whole thing.
Thank you, Frank. Chris?
Yeah, I agree. I like the architecture. I think it's appropriate. It does seem more finely detailed on the front than on the sides as you get closer to the rear. That's where the mural comes in. I think that could add a lot of visual interest if it's done right. But I would just be interested to see what's actually proposed for that. But otherwise, I did not see any issues.
Great, thank you, Chris. Yeah, certainly I agree with you and Frank that, the architecture seems appropriate. I think, the stack bond and the trellis are nicely detailed. I appreciate staff's comments about the potential blankness, although I think for me, it's mitigated by how very small this building is. Even the blank areas are quite small. I think, like you both, the idea of a mural is intriguing. I guess I feel a bit cautious and uncertain as to whether we are the right body to be part of reviewing that or determining it. I don't know. I'm not familiar with the city program, but I do wonder if the county doesn't have a need, or if they don't already have a body that reviews murals, if there would need to be one, just to the point of content being so important in Margaret, are you?
Yeah, I would just two comments related to the mural. If the board is going to consider murals acceptable treatment for blank wall areas, I think we might want to have a discussion at another time focused on that and when and under what circumstances that's going to be okay. You don't have guidelines in place to review the content of a mural, so I don't know how. I don't know that would fall under your purview, but it's certainly something that we can look into if you think that murals are appropriate treatments for blank wall areas for new buildings.
Thank you, Margaret. Yeah, and I guess interested Chris and Frank in your thoughts. I would, in the interest of caution, probably prefer that we approve it without the mural, accepting the architectural treatment, and maybe defer acceptance of murals as a treatment for blank walls until there's a chance to consider that more fully.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I mean, the mural is paint after all, and I think the architecture should, I guess, speak for itself without it. Having said that, I do think it's appropriate without the mural. I think without a mural being proposed, I might like the canopies or a little bit more detailing to extend a little bit further towards the back. However, what's presented right now, I think is appropriate. That's just kind of a personal opinion, I guess, on my part.
Thank you, Chris. Frank, further thoughts about course?
I agree with you, Dade. I think we should approve it without the mural. We can discuss circumstances under which I guess a mural could be approved, and it sounds like there's no body to actually review and approve the mural on the county's behalf. I tend to agree with you. I think the blankness of the wall is mitigated by the scale of the building. It's just not that much area. The building's so small. And I think it begs the question about, to Margaret's point about is a mural an appropriate treatment? And I suspect that depends on how big the wall is. And that could be difficult to sort of legislate or regulate. So I think the safest course of action is to approve it as submitted without the mural, and then figure out what process they go through to get a mural approved at a later date.
Yeah, thank you, Frank and Chris, for your additional thoughts on this. Margaret, could we turn to the recommendations, or Chris? Yeah.
Are you able to see the Word document? Okay, so this was submitted as an initial site plan with preliminary architecture. So this is one of those sort of four-part actions where you're forwarding recommendations to the agent for the site review committee. The first bullet item here is recommending approval of the initial plan. No recommendations related to the plan or the prior to the issuance of a grading permit. And then for the final site plan, there are a number of comments that include both site and architectural issues.
Thank you, Margaret. So any suggested revisions or adjustments to this, Chris or Frank?
I think there are a couple items we can delete. So 1, 3, 4, I think that's it.
I guess regarding number 10, is there room for another tree with the current layout?
Sounded as if there might be an opportunity, possibly through adjustment of the travel lane. So, and anything that we would need to add.
I think we should probably add a statement about the mural.
Okay.
I guess, let me ask a question. In the absence of any reference to a mural in the approval, would the applicant need to come to the county to get a mural approved at some point in the future? Or would that typically be up to
when another application will come back for this, a final site plan and another architectural review. Presumably that application would get approved and it would have a certificate of appropriateness. So if that approval is the building without a mural, any change to that building would require an amendment.
I see.
So would you propose we just include a comment to remove the mural, or? I don't know, Chris or Frank, do you have any other alternative suggested?
Well, I'm trying to figure out. It sounds like by default, in fact, we do regulate the mural because if it's on the building, it falls within our purview, but we don't really have any standards for evaluating it.
I think
right?
whether there's a mural or not falls within your purview. I'm not sure about the content of the mural, how you would go about reviewing that.
How does the applicant feel about coming back once they know kind of what they want to do in the way of a mural?
Yeah, so for context, for our location down on Main Street,
Yeah.
We submitted to ARB and similar comments. It was in purview because of it's a function of the building. So what they recommended we do is just work with 10th and Page, which is the local AJH, I guess. So we're working. We're going to be working through them to find out if we can find something that's mutually agreeable for everybody. And the intent here is basically the same. I'd say it's a little bit more, makes a little bit more sense on Main Street than maybe here. It's not a need to have. So given what we're doing there, and I didn't know what the visibility was of this board to that, we felt like it could be something that adds uniqueness and kind of puts a Charlottesville stamp on it and that's the reason why I had referenced we would be working. If we do a mural, we're going to go through the Charlottesville mural project to make sure that the proper folks are involved in it. But that also being said, if this is something that, you know, becomes a big complication, then we'll probably just go without it because, like you said, we have a beautiful building as is.
Okay, well, thank you. No, I think we're all intrigued by the concept, and certainly within the city, there's a good tradition of it, and I think it makes sense for us to take a look at how it's managed there and just to figure out how that fits with or not our purview. But I appreciate the flexibility at this moment just to to not proceed with it, just so that we can sort that out a little more fully before we.
So is that something that maybe we should work on some concepts through getting an artist and coming back to present that, but bifurcate?
I think I don't know that it's clear that we would be reviewing the content in the future either. So I don't know that I would encourage you to or not to develop a mural.
Well, it seems like we would have to review it because they'd have to come back in order to get this amendment approved. Margaret, unless I'm misreading something.
If the building is approved without a mural, and then the applicant wants to add a mural later, it would need approval from the ARB. I can't say at this point in time what the level of that review is. It's just, maybe it's just, do you have a mural or not? Maybe it's, would you look at the colors? You could look at colors without looking at actual content.
We're open to approval without it. If you guys want to huddle and maybe get back to us, or we can handle this offline, that's A-okay with us.
Yeah, I think we can check with zoning and other divisions to see what else we might need to be considering. And then I think that I would be uncomfortable with you all approving a mural without having at least some draft guidelines in place so that we know how to deal with additional ones when they come in.
Yeah, thank you, Margaret, for that perspective. So I think this makes sense to include the clause you've drafted. Great. Any further comments, or is anybody ready to make a motion?
I'll make a motion. I'll move that we forward the recommendations outlined in the staff report to the Agent for Site Review Committee, amended as follows. Items 1, 3, and 4 are deleted. And item 19, which says eliminate the mural from the proposal. The applicant may return in the future following ARB establishment of mural guidelines, is added.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Will you call the vote?
Mr. Stoner,
Aye.
Mr. Henningsen,
Aye.
Mr. Vanderwerf.
Aye. Thank you very much. So our next item is ARB 2021-08, on Tops Holiday Inn Express Minor. Margaret, could you provide your presentation?
Thank you, board members.
Are you able to see my slide?
I
Great. Okay. This is a proposal to make revisions to an ARB approved hotel design. The certificate of appropriateness was issued for this hotel on July 26th of 2019, and the hotel is under construction. The amendment includes 4 primary items. 1 is to move rooftop equipment to the ground level and to add vinyl screening fence to screen it. 2, to revise site and building mounted lighting. 3, to add brand lighting consisting of blue colored lights. And 4, to eliminate the sunshade from the west elevation. Let's start with the equipment proposal. The request is to relocate equipment from the roof to the Route 20 side of the building. The equipment will be grouped into 2 locations and screened with vinyl fence. The applicant has indicated that the screen would have to be 10 feet tall to be seen from the Route 20 entrance quarter. But the plans don't indicate equipment height or fence color. Equipment in the eastern location, which is the one at the top of the image in this slide, won't be visible from the street due to topography and wooded area. And equipment in the western location will have minimal visibility at best. A fence height that fully screens the equipment and a fence color that blends with the building would help ensure an appropriate appearance. So we've made recommendations to that effect. Let's move on to the sunshade. So the hotel was approved with a sunshade on the west elevation. And that's visible in the drawing on the right side of this slide. That would be visible from the entrance quarters. And you can see that in the image on the left. That's a photo that was taken just 2 weeks ago. The sunshade helped break up the building mass. It helped establish human scale and helped establish a cohesive overall design because it provided a visual link to the front elevation where there's another canopy. Without it, the elevation appears more blank and less finished, and the overall design is less unified. The applicant has indicated that there are safety issues with the sunshade, so we don't want to require a safety hazard be built, but it seems that alternate architectural elements that have no safety issues could be added to substitute for the sunshade on the west elevation, and we've made that recommendation. The next issue is changes to site lighting and wall-mounted downlights. A photometric plan has been submitted. It's anticipated that spillover will meet ordinance requirements, but both versions of the plan that were submitted are not fully legible, so we need a legible plan to make sure all requirements are being met. Wall lights that are aimed downward and have white lamps are proposed to be installed at 28 feet and 45 feet high on the building. Wall fixtures in the entrance quarters are typically mounted much closer to the ground to focus light on sidewalks for safety and to limit the illumination of the building itself. We've recommended the proposal be revised to lower the wall fixtures to a pedestrian scale height. And we saw this recently with the Aldi proposal at Albemarle Square. Also note that this lowering lights could increase the light levels at the ground near the building, and these would still need to be maintained at or below 20-foot candles. The final issue is another lighting issue. The applicant would like to add blue-colored lights to the building. The decorative lighting is meant to illuminate the building itself and to identify the brand of the hotel. Colored lighting of this type has not been previously approved in the entrance quarters, and we've pointed out consistently that, as proposed, this type of light really acts as signage. These views from the hotel's brand guide and of the Holiday Inn Express in Stanton suggest that the blue light becomes the prominent visual feature of the building at night. In the entrance quarters, the intended focus is on historically compatible architecture enhanced with appropriate landscaping, not on commercial development branded with color lighting. The hotel has a prominent location in the Pantops Corner development. Its elevated position makes it visible from a distance on Route 20 north of the site, so the blue lights would be visible along Route 20 at night. And the hotel is also visible from the Route 20-250 intersection. And there's a clear view of the hotel available from Route 250 along Pantops Corner Way. Our recommendation is that the blue lights be eliminated from the proposal and any illumination of the building for purposes other than safety and security be eliminated. If the ARB considers that these lights to be appropriate, then additional information will be needed on the lighting plan. And it's just a summary of our recommendations. Happy to try to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much, Margaret. Frank Stoner, do you have any questions?
I do. Margaret, it looked to me like in addition to losing a sunshade, we lost some windows on that elevation. Is that the case?
The elevation, I think, has an error in it. I'll go back to the photo where you can see that there are windows in place. This is the actual building under construction. So I see we've got 2 rows of windows there, and I think it's just an error in the drawing.
Okay. I don't have any other questions.
Okay, thank you, Frank. Chris?
I don't have any questions.
Thank you. Frank Hancock?
Just one question about the sunshade. Margaret, do you know how far out it projected from the building, and was it cantilevered or did it have posts?
I don't believe it had posts. And I can try and I can pull the file and see how far it projected out. I don't know what that mentioned offhand, but the applicant may also have that ready.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any other questions.
Thank you, Frank. And my question may be for the applicant, more related to the sunshade. Have they described what the safety concerns are? So I think with that, can invite the applicant to make their presentation.
Hello, I'm Wilson Enox, JW Enox Incorporated, general contractor working on the Holiday Inn Express. Do you want me to take these items in the order that I presented them, that being the ground level mechanical areas first, and could go all the way through to the sunshades?
Sure, that would be acceptable. Yeah,
Okay.
To present.
I say majority, I'd say 10 out of 15 units or 12 out of 15 units were positioned on a low roof area above the pool, which is the elevation that you see from Route 20. And those units served, the condensing units served exclusively first floor areas, some of which were at the extreme far end of the building. The equipment itself is what's really driving this request. The manufacturer's recommendations were being pretty dramatically exceeded in trying to get the refrigerant lines from the condensing units to the inside air handlers. The 2 yard positions were chosen based on the fact that they are adjacent to internal mechanical rooms, and none of the lodging rooms would have a view of those mechanical yards. One is adjacent to the mechanical room that serves the pool area, the second to a mechanical room that is the primary where fire pumps and other equipment are. It allows us to get to each of the units within about 75 feet of run. In the original approved plan, there were a couple of condensing units that were positioned on the ground, but they are fairly close to the centralized public area. And again, we're pretty much driven by these refrigeration line run requirements. So it's our hope that the ARB will look favorably upon this. And it's really a matter of trying to make sure the owner's systems function properly going forward. The second item, the brand lighting. As I'm sure you're aware, all of the brands, IHG, Marriott, Hilton, they all have their particulars that they like to see on their buildings. And the blue uplight is a brand feature for a Holiday Inn Express. Standard Holiday Inn, it's a green uplight, but it is just part of their branding and what they try and make their properties recognizable. The owner's photos from Stanton, he has a facility there. Give you a pretty good feel for what it looks like at the end. It does not really offer any illumination for egress. It is, and I guess this is contrary to some of your typical requirements, it does illuminate the building. The blue lights in our case will be on a facade that has a thin brick system that it is 2 thicknesses. So we'll get some speckling up the wall on the bricks that project beyond the primary plane. IHG is very insistent upon this, but they will, of course, we will follow whatever the ARB decides in this matter. The third piece, an elimination of the sunshades. International Hotel and Group has taken that out of their standard. What they've found is in a lot of cases, in particular where they can't readily monitor it, there is no outside post. They project about 8 feet off the face of the building. They're anchored to structural steel on the inside. It's an aluminum shade system, kind of like a louver. And they find people jump up and grab on them and hang from them. And it is not the intention to eliminate all of them on this building. They think that they would prefer to keep the sunshade system on the north elevation, which is over a patio. It's also immediately adjacent to the public area where the breakfast service and the meeting rooms and the seating areas are. And from a management standpoint, they believe they can monitor that area well enough to where if someone starts doing something untoward, they can stop them before they cause any damage. The other sunshades on the building, and the one in particular that Margaret pointed out from on the Route 20 side, is outboard of the pool area. There's not normally an attendant in that area, and they would like very much to get rid of that. They're just concerned that, you know, someone's going to hang from them and literally pull them down. So that was the rationale behind the elimination of the sunshades to the extent that we're hoping you will allow.
Great, thank you. Any further presentation?
And Margaret mentioned that she needed a more legible lighting plan. I'll see to her getting that, and that we've been trading plans back and forth with Margaret, and we'll continue to do so until she is satisfied with that we're meeting the requirements of the ARB.
Thank you. Do members have any questions for the applicant, starting with Chris?
Yeah, I guess in the area where the mechanical equipment is getting relocated, is there any room to have any kind of landscaping in front of the fence, or is the fence coming right up to the sidewalk? And I understand that the fencing itself might not be visible from the entrance corridor, but just curious.
We have probably about 2 feet remaining from the face of the building once that screen yard is developed to the edge of the sidewalk that's on backside face of curb. Now that is particularly the case on the east end of the building. Over the west, the sidewalk is on a bit of a skew to the face of the building, and we may have more room there that we could drop in some plantings.
Thanks.
Welcome.
Thank you, Frank Stoner.
Now, Wilson, I'm wondering if you have a drawing, any detailed drawing of the sunshade on either face, just so we can get a better understanding of what it is. And
I'd be glad to share with you my shop drawings for that, but I'm not an expert at Zoom meetings. How might I bring up a file?
Good question.
Okay, you're going to need to open the file first and have it on your desktop open.
Okay.
And you're going to go into at the bottom of the screen where you see everybody at, it says share screen.
That's in Scan Docs. I don't want to leave. Let's see here.
I have a drawing open. I can try and share. Do you want me to jump in?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Are you able to see the hotel image?
Yep.
Yes, we can see that.
Is there any way to zoom in on that?
And I guess as Margaret is doing that, what height are the sunshades at currently? As proposed in the
About
design?
9 feet above the surface, the patio, or
In terms of where the structure for the floor above is it fair to say that it is some distance above where the sunscreens are currently proposed?
I'm sorry, I didn't get your question.
In terms of the structure, the second floor, is it higher than the top of the sunscreen that's shown right now?
Yeah, the second floor structure, finished floor is like 12.4 and 5/8. The typical window header is at 8 feet. The sunshade is positioned above a brick course or two. It's about 8.8 above the ground. The bottom of the sunshade is currently designed to go at that location.
Thank you. I'm sorry. So if Frank, do you have other questions?
Well, I guess as a follow-up to your question, Dade, is it possible to raise those sunshades so they're out of reach and don't pose a...
At this point in construction, I wish we could, but what was included in the original design were horizontal tube steel that is at the elevation I just described, that's in the wall system itself, to which the attachment points were designed to go. And to raise them up at this point, we would have to deconstruct the wall, and we currently have 3 or 4 stories of building bearing down through that tube.
And what's the structure of the building? Steel frame or wood?
It's a combination. The first floor, and in any area that has a broad span, such as the public area, the main entry and etc., there's a structural steel frame. There's a structural steel frame over the pool area, which is where it is, that's what you see from Route 20. And those tubes and columns stop basically at the second floor elevation.
I see.
And it's
And
wood
on
frame
this,
from that point on.
On this particular elevation, is that space occupiable? Is there anticipated to be any seating out there or any other sort of amenity, FF&E kind of?
Currently, I don't see anything in the furniture plan to go out there. There's about 8 feet from the face of the building to to a retaining wall, and a series of fencing that's positioned on top of the retaining wall. There will be a walkway or an 8-foot patio out there. I suppose you could sit out there if the owner supplied furniture in that spot.
I see. Okay, great, thanks. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you. Craig Hancock, any questions?
Yeah, a couple questions. Following up on the sunshade discussion. Have you explored an option of a freestanding structure separate from the building?
We have not yet. To answer your question, that's certainly a possibility. One thing I have run into, and I'll be working with Margaret on as well, we originally hoped to put a few little post lamps out there just to keep people from congregating outside that storefront, when we're in the pool. And we're not really going to be able to position anything of that sort close to the retaining wall because of the forces created by wind and such on those poles would transfer to the retaining wall. I found out about a week and a half ago that a 12-foot post lamp is not going to be, I can't position it within 54 inches of that retaining wall because of the way the fabrics that hold the retaining wall in place, how they're positioned. So I don't think I can put a foundation out on that edge without creating a detriment to the stability of the retaining wall.
Thank you. And then my second question is about the HVAC units and the fence. How tall is the fence you're proposing?
We'll adjust to whatever the ARB would like, but the units themselves are less, well, right at about 4 feet tall.
Okay, thank you.
It looks very much like the condensing unit you have at home. These aren't large air handling units or condensing units. I think that all of them are in the 3.5 ton or smaller, but they address specific areas of the building and are fairly economical in the way they run by virtue of that separation.
Okay, thank you. I
very
don't
much.
have any more questions.
Great, thank you, Frank. And I think my questions have been asked, so thank you. I guess, Carolyn, are there any members of the public wishing to comment?
No, sir.
Okay, well, we'll go into discussion. Frank Stone, your thoughts?
Dave, would it be, or Margaret, I guess, would it be possible to go back and look at that elevation, the affected elevation from the entrance corridor real quick?
Sure. Let me pull it up. Is that the image you wanted?
Yep, that's it. And it looks like those are operable doors, or are those just windows on the lower level? So it looks like there are doors there as well.
There are.
Okay.
There's a pair of 3.0 doors, storefront style, with transom above, centralized there onto that patio. That also provides egress out of the pool area and aligns with the corridor beyond in the building. Each side of that are fixed window systems.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I'm struggling with the elimination of the sunshade. I could imagine other options that from an architectural standpoint might kind of address the concern, which is over the blankness of that wall, and particularly if there are operable doors coming out of the pool area there, it seems logical that you might have some sort of canopy over top of those doors.
Accommodate that if that's what you would like to see. We do have a structural tube above that area.
Yeah, I don't know how other folks feel. We'll see how other ARB members feel, but that could address, for me, kind of address the loss from an architectural perspective of the canopy that you proposed. I don't know, this elevation, at least from the entrance corridor, kind of stands on its own. So the connection to the front canopy is not as important to me. Or the architectural continuity isn't necessarily as important to me, but it may be to others. I don't have a problem with the fencing of the HVAC units. I think that 5-foot fence is probably more than adequate to address that. And as for the blue lights, I tend to agree with Margaret. I think that's a slippery slope. It is essentially a form of signage, and in that sense, I'd probably not be supportive. But perhaps could be convinced otherwise. So those are my initial thoughts.
Thank you, Frank. Frank Hancock?
I agree with Frank Stoner. On the issue of what we're looking at here, I think this is one of the most prominent faces of the building as far as visibility from an entrance corridor. So I think that sunshade is important on this side. I think a lot of our scrutiny and working through the design of this building, had to do with this elevation this side of the building. So I think that's pretty important. I think the screening of the HVAC is good. I think that meets the requirements if you can't see it. I think thinking about a human scale as far as how tall that fence is, I heard 10 feet, but then I realized that was the height that you would actually see anything, not necessarily the fence height. So I appreciate that it's lower than that. And then the blue light, I agree. I think any uplighting is a no-go, any blue uplighting especially. I could be convinced maybe there's something ground level pointed down that isn't even that visible from 250 that maybe could be some concession there, but I would need to, be convinced of it with some visualization, some sense of how you see that. But I think shining the blue lights up the big front of the facade, I don't think that's appropriate.
Thank you, Frank. Chris, your thoughts?
Yeah, the mechanical screening, I don't have a problem with at all. I think that's just a practical concern that you have to address. As far as the canopies, I can't believe I'm saying this because I like canopies, and every time I draw them, they kind of get value engineered out of the project, and I don't like that. But in this case, they seem a little bit additive to me, and I think that because I'm seeing it built without them, I don't think I would miss them if they weren't there, but I realize I'm probably in the minority in that. So I don't have a problem with the removal of the canopies on that side. The blue lights, I think I'm kind of in with everyone else so far, at least. If it's kind of a big blue light, you're making the building blue, whether you're painting it or putting blue light on it, seems like the same thing. And then as far as the parking lot light, I kind of agree with just the staff recommendations on that. So that's kind of where I fall on those issues.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciated your earlier question about landscaping in front of the mechanical fencing. And I think that in combination with the low height that's needed, it's really no issue. I agree. In terms of the sunshade, I think I agree with the majority of the members that on this elevation facing Route 20, it's an important element to break up the scale and create some human scale at the bottom of that facade. So whether the applicant chooses to explore an independent structure or tying into existing floor structure or building the original design, I think for me, it would be important to keep that original approval or originally approved element. And like everyone, I think I'm concerned about the precedent of colored lighting and especially so would not support approval of that, and appreciate staff's parking comments as well. So why don't we take a look at the staff recommendations.
So this, the way we've worded this, it's a recommendation for approval with the conditions listed in the staff report. There's a total of 14 items here. I've got 2 of them highlighted in blue. Number 6 says to, let's jump to number 12. Number 12 says to eliminate the blue lights from the proposal. If you want to include that in the list, then you won't need number 6 because it's asking for detail on the blue colored lights.
Yeah, Personally, I would support retaining 12 and removing 6, but how do other members feel?
Yeah, I'm kind of in agreement with that too.
Me too.
Thank you. Margaret, thanks for color coding it for us too. Any other revisions folks would suggest?
This item wasn't discussed in much detail. That's requiring the moving down the other wall fixtures, the wall light fixtures that are down lights with white light to lower more pedestrian level heights.
I guess we didn't talk about that. I assume the reason they're as high as they are is to illuminate the building or some elements of the building. Is that?
That's my assumption.
Or to illuminate more of the parking lot so you don't need as many pole lights.
I think they're aimed at illuminating the perimeter walks. They're positioned up rather high so that they have a broader coverage, and it reduces the concentration of light at the surface. The intention was not really to light up the building, but to try and get the sidewalks as they go around the perimeter illuminated.
Margaret, I guess, could you pull up the exhibit for that issue again?
Is this the one you had in mind?
I think so. I see. Okay, yeah, I think I had conflated maybe this with the blue lights and had assumed that the ones high in the building were part of that decorative scheme. But these are up at the 4th floor, effectively.
They're at 28 and 45.
I'm sorry, what are those heights again?
Sorry, 28 and 45.
Yeah, I would agree that seems extraordinarily high for sidewalk illumination.
Would they all be lowered to the 28 and still achieve relatively consistent light pattern for the sidewalks?
Yeah, I mean, I wonder, most pedestrian light poles are usually in the 12 to 15, 16 foot height. Could they be brought down? Certainly, I mean, it would avoid as much glare, I would imagine, for upper guest rooms.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, if that's considered site lighting, does that exceed the heights and the, is that a zoning issue? I know we have 20 feet listed in the design guidelines, but just since it is building mounted.
It's a good question. I don't think.
It's definitely functioning as site lighting. I mean, I don't.
Yeah.
So I agree. I think it needs to come down.
Would you like me to go back to the?
Yes, please. Yeah, thank you, Marvin.
I'm okay with number 10.
Yeah, I think it's good as written. Any further comments? Are there ones beyond 14, Margaret?
That's it.
I guess, can we provide any additional definition as to what pedestrian scale height means.
Frank, to your point, do you want to say 20 feet or lower, or is there another height that would be appropriate? What are the heights of the other site lights?
I think 20 feet or lower is in accordance with our guidelines. I think to your point earlier, Dave, 12 to 15 foot height is typically pedestrian scale. But oftentimes parking lot light fixtures in the 20-foot height range will definitely light pedestrian ways.
Thank you, Frank. Great. Any further revisions, or is anybody prepared to make a motion?
I'll move for approval of the certificate of appropriateness for ARB 2021-08 Pantops Holiday Inn Express minor with the conditions listed in the staff report, amended as follows. Strike item number 6. Revise item 10 to include the language 20 feet or lower.
I'll second that.
Carolyn, could you call the vote?
Mr. Stoner,
Aye.
Mr. Hancock,
Aye.
Mr. Henningsen,
Aye.
Mr. Vanderwerf.
Aye. Great. Thank you very much. Let's see, I know we still have, I think, 3 regular items remaining. If folks could keep on going, we'll keep on.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you to the applicant. Thank you. All right, so next item is ARB 2021-09 Caliber collision. Chris?
Yes. Are you all viewing the slide screen?
We are.
This is an application to establish an auto body shop use in an existing 9,200 square foot building with associated site improvements. A special use permit is required for auto body shop use in the highway commercial district. ARB comments will be forwarded to the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors. The building was built prior to the establishment of the entrance quarter and does not reflect the historic architecture of the county, and the proposed changes will not alter this condition. However, the color proposed for the majority of the building, Nomadic Desert, is one that's compatible with the building's surroundings. The proposal has new roof-mounted equipment associated with the proposed paint booth that will be visible from the entrance quarter. The guidelines say that the equipment should not be visible from the entrance quarter street. Staff is recommending that that equipment be relocated to eliminate visibility. Alternatively, locations that significantly reduce visibility combined with other mitigation, such as landscaping or painting the equipment, may be appropriate, given that the existing building is being reused. A 6-foot tall board-on-board fence and vision slats added to the existing chain link fence are proposed to meet the ordinance requirement that vehicles awaiting repair not be visible from the public street. The wood fencing appears more suited to a residential setting and is expected to stand out in the commercial context of this entrance corridor. While chain link fencing is not appropriate for an entrance corridor, the fencing currently on site is acceptable as long as no additional height is needed to screen the vehicles awaiting repair. The vision slots may also be acceptable if the color is coordinated with the development. Staff is recommending that the wood fencing be revised to a material that better relates to the building and surrounding commercial context, and that a compatible color be identified for the vision slots. A landscape plan has not been provided, but site perspectives show planting arrangements that are not typical of frontage landscaping. The available planting area for the frontage landscaping is limited by existing and potential pedestrian improvements, notably a 14-foot shared use path called out in the RIO 29 plan, but landscaping that better meets the guidelines would be appropriate. There are currently very little there's currently very little landscaping on site. The plan does not meet requirements for perimeter trees or landscaping to offset long building elevations. There appears to be some planting area on the north and south sides of the site. So we're recommending that landscaping be added in these areas to help integrate the building and parking into the surrounding area. Staff does not recommend approval of the application at this time due to the screening issues listed in the staff report. I'd be happy to answer any questions you all may have.
Thank you, Chris. Frank Hancock, do you have any questions for staff?
No, this time. Thanks, Chris.
Frank Stoner?
No, I don't have any questions at this time.
Chris?
No questions for me. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation, Chris. I have no questions either. Appreciate it. Great. May we hear from the applicant?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Melissa Hernandez, representing Brett Flory of Cross Architects for the proposed Caliber Collision. As stated, the remodel project will include updating the landscaping along the Seminole Trail. If there's those, the perspective that are shown in Chris's presentation are just proposals. So if there's any recommendation from the city, we'll take that. And then we're going to have to patch and reseal the concrete. And we'll also add asphalt paving at the west side of the property. We're also going to add some stained wood plank fence to secure the parking area at the south. But as recommended by the city, we're going to revise that to match whatever is designed for the building.
Thank you. Do you have any further presentation?
No, sir.
Thank you. Great. Well, see if members have any further questions. Frank Stoner, do you have any questions for the applicant?
I don't, Dave. Thanks.
Thank you. Frank Hancock?
I might have missed it in the presentation. I apologize. Did you say the fencing material would match the building material?
No.
Okay.
I think, yeah.
Okay. I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Chris?
So the the large equipment for the paint booth, is that an easy thing to relocate, or is that pretty much the only place you can have it from a practical perspective?
For now, we are going to keep wherever we are showing it right now.
All right, thanks.
Thank you. I guess a follow-up to that is it possible to screen that equipment?
Yes, sir. We'll provide that.
Thank you. And so I was a little confused. I thought I heard that the fencing would match the building material, but will it be wood? Can you clarify again what the fencing to screen the cars awaiting repair will be?
Yes, we'll add stained wood plank fence. That's what we're using.
Okay. And I guess staff had made a comment that while that material is often seen and appropriate in the more rural areas of the county, and in this area, I think staff observed another material might be more appropriate. Did you have any thoughts in response to that comment?
I have not, but if you have any recommendation, we're happy to look at it.
Okay, thank you. And I think in terms of landscape, did I hear you correctly that you're happy to adjust the landscape plan to comply with the typical entrance corridor guidelines?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. I don't have other questions. Carolyn, are there any members of the public wishing to comment?
No, sir.
Thank you. Well, we'll go into discussion. Frank Stoner, would you start it?
I don't really have a lot to add. I think the fencing material should be something more compatible with the environment it's in, but I can't tell you off the top of my head what that should be. Hopefully one of you architects can chime in on that. Otherwise, I don't really have much to add to the conversation. I think the recommendations of staff are appropriate.
Thank you, Frank. Frank Hancock.
I agree, and I agree with staff recommendations. I think screening the equipment on the rooftop is important, especially with this building height. And, you know, I think seeing that frontage landscaping and seeing the fence that related more to the building, I think would help the proposal.
Okay.
Thank you, Frank. Chris?
Yeah, I'm more concerned about the rooftop equipment and how that would be screened, and if it would be screened. The fence, I do think a different material for the fence would be better than wood, but I'm not as concerned about that because the fencing is kind of halfway back the property, which is pretty far behind the entrance corridor. So I don't know that it really would be that visible just because it's not right kind of up in your face if you're driving or even walking on the entrance corridor. So I'd be more concerned about screening of the rooftop stuff.
Sure. But we'll look at that and we'll provide that.
Thank you, Chris. No, I appreciate your perspective on the priority for the rooftop screening and agree that's important to look at and to include. It's mitigated somewhat by those stacks being, you know, far at the western end, but certainly they'll be tall enough. It would make sense to try and find a way to screen them in a way that resolves as well with the building. And I think you make a good point about the fencing. I agree with everybody that something besides wood would probably be more appropriate. And it could be that if it were, you know, a metal panel similar to the building, that would be a fairly easy way to directly tie the two together. And I'm glad to hear the applicants say that they can incorporate the entrance corridor landscaping, so that will be a positive improvement to the site.
Would you consider vinyl fencing?
I think at the distance it is from the entrance corridor, if it visually had an appearance similar to the rest of the building, that might be acceptable. I don't know, Chris, Frank, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think if it was a design and color that was compatible with the proposal for the building, that might be better than wood, but
Okay.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Well, why don't we take a look at staff recommendations?
Are you able to see the Word document?
I am.
So we're recommending that you don't recommend approval at this time, and that you actually ask the applicant to come back with those alternate screening proposals so that you're able to determine that they can have an appropriate appearance for the entrance corridor. This would potentially delay the applicants, the schedule for the special use permit application getting to the planning commission. But it's typically more useful to go with a recommendation of approval from the ARB than not.
Thank you, Margaret. And I appreciate that recommendation. I think it makes sense to have the screening confirmed and be able to give the applicant a certificate of appropriateness.
If everyone is in agreement, then it would be appropriate to make a motion on that recommendation.
Do we have a motion? Do folks concur?
I guess if, since this review is just for the SUP recommendation, they still have to come back for a certificate of appropriateness just to get the site plan, even if they do get an SUP. Is that correct? Or
They would need to come back to work out all the details, but we felt that the screening of the rooftop equipment may be difficult to do, and so it would be important to see those details before the special use permit went on through the process.
okay.
I think that, Margaret, you're probably onto something there, just to the extent that that screening will be high enough that it will effectively be, significant building mass. And so its design may be important to consider. Yeah.
So do we need to go through this ARB for that screening again, or?
If we go with the initial recommendation here, but Chris, Frank, your thoughts?
If we make this recommendation, then it's just up to the applicant whether they move forward with the special use permit or they decide to come back. We're just, right?
It's true. They could ask to move on to the planning commission without a positive recommendation from the ARB.
Okay. Thank you.
Certainly. Okay. So is anyone prepared to make the motion?
Do we need to revise this language at all, or remove the or and what's below
Yeah,
it? Or?
What I have highlighted in gray is what I was referring to as the recommended action. So this would not be, you're not looking at that. That's the action I was describing.
Okay.
I'll move to forward the following recommendation to the Planning Commission and Board of Supervisors. The ARB does not recommend approval of the special use permit as proposed because screening issues have not been resolved. It is not clear that the visual impacts can be sufficiently mitigated. The applicant should return for a work session with the ARB to review alternate fence designs that are more coordinated with the building and options for mitigating the view of the new rooftop equipment, including but not limited to alternate equipment locations, paint color, and/or landscape screening.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Carolyn, would you call the vote?
Yes. Mr. Stoner,
Aye.
Mr. Hancock,
Aye.
Mr. Henningsen,
Aye.
Mr. Vanderwerf.
Aye. Great. Thank you very much to the applicant and to staff.
We did have a list of comments for the future site plan. If those could wait, if the applicant thought they were going to come back and do what was just recommended, because some of these would likely go away if those issues were resolved. but you can also just review these now as an early early comments for the applicant's future submittals.
I would suggest we wait.
We'll hold those for the next time
Okay,
applicant returns.
thank you, Margaret. Well, if I might move that we go into a short recess and reconvene at 3 o'clock. We still have several items to go through. Okay, well, good to see everybody again. Wonderful. Well, let's see. Carolyn, are you ready for us to begin again?
Yes, I am. Go right ahead.
Great. Thank you so much. Well, we'll start now with ARB item 2021-12, 1680 Seminole Trail.
Are you able to see my PowerPoint slide?
Yes, thank you, Margaret.
Okay, great. Let me just start by saying that the staff report, the application number on the staff report was not correct. ARB 2021-12, as it's shown in the slide, is the correct application number. And this is a proposal to renovate the Hardee's restaurant site that's located at the southwest corner of Route 29 and Rio Road to accommodate an automobile dealership, and the site is clearly visible from both the entrance quarters. You probably recall seeing this proposal not too long ago as an advisory review for a special use permit for outdoor sales, storage, and display. And that was in September of last year. The Board of Supervisors reviewed and approved the special use permit with conditions addressing the ARB's concerns on January 6th of this year. The existing restaurant building was constructed prior to the establishment of the entrance quarters. It does not reflect the traditional architecture of the area, but orderly and attractive development will be promoted with this proposal, with the addition of planting area and landscaping and with updated lighting. This is the proposed site plan. Site changes include the removal of the drive-through structure on the south side of the building and the refrigeration unit on the back of the building, and the addition of parking spaces in both of those areas. There are currently no trees along either the Route 29 or Rio Road entrance corridors. The planting area along the corridors would be expanded. Trees and shrubs would be added. The sizes and locations don't meet the guidelines exactly, but the proposal is significantly improving a non-conforming existing condition, so we believe it's appropriate in this case. Trees and shrubs are also shown along the south side of the building, and there appears to be a conflict between a cherry tree and the pole light in this area. So one of our recommendations is to resolve that tree light and pole conflict. Lighting improvements are proposed with the application. Existing non-conforming pole lights would be removed and new lights would be installed. A photometric plan has been submitted. In some locations, foot candle readings do not extend to the property line, and some suggest that spillover may exceed requirements. So we've recommended revisions to the photometric plan to address those issues. The proposal also includes the removal of 40 linear feet of the existing concrete retaining wall and handrail along Rio Road. The plan indicates that 8 linear feet will then be rebuilt to tie into the new grades associated with the new planting area. No information on construction type, material, or appearance of the rebuilt wall was included on the plan, and the demolition of the wall was not noted on the demolition sheet. So we've recommended that details be added to the plan to show that the new end of the retaining wall will have an appropriate and coordinated appearance. So a summary of our recommendations, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you very much, Margaret. Chris, do you have any questions?
No, I don't have any questions. Thanks.
Yep. Frank Hancock?
Are we reviewing any architecture?
The only changes to the building would be in the area where the drive-through structure is being removed. And there's a note on the plan that says that that wall area would just be repaired to appear consistent with the surrounding wall area. There's no other architectural changes proposed.
Okay, was there a staff comment of needing more description? Was just the treatment of the building in areas where it will be removed? Do we feel comfortable though that it will match?
It's just a general comment and or a general note on the plan, and it seemed pretty basic, but I was comfortable with it. But certainly, if additional detail is needed, I think that's easy enough to ask for.
Okay, yeah, I was just looking at the recommendation number 2, just at the building, and then I couldn't see any building plans or in our packet. So, okay, no other questions.
Thank you, Frank Stone.
No, thanks, Dade. I don't have any questions.
Thank you. I don't have any either. So is there a representative from the applicant? Hi, Scott.
Hey, thank you very much. My name is Scott Collins. I'm representing the applicant on this. And like you said, you guys have seen this once before. I think we incorporated a lot of the suggestions and sort of comments that you had on the initial review of this when it went through the special use permit. So we tried to incorporate that with this final design. And reading over the staff report, I don't have any problems or issues with any of the last remaining conditions of approval. We're fine with that. We can certainly incorporate that into the final plans for submission for certificate of appropriateness. So I'm good with everything. The wall itself would be the same material, just to let you know. It would just kind of be reworked for that 8 feet to tie it in. But other than that, everything else is pretty straightforward. Thank you very much.
Scott, any questions for the applicant, Chris?
No questions for me.
Thank you, Frank Hancock.
Scott, will that wall just match? It's like that rusticated treatment on. Is that a VDOT detail? Will it match that and have the same guardrail on top?
It would, yes. We try to just sort of continue that on and fix the end where we adjust it. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, Frank Stoner.
I don't have any questions for the applicant.
Nor do I. Carolyn, are there any members of the public wishing to comment?
No, sir, there isn't.
All right. To start the discussion off, Frank Hancock.
Yeah, I think it's pretty straightforward. I probably said this the last time we reviewed it, but I appreciate the site plan, how it pulls back and gives us that area for landscaping, especially given the use of the building. To still have that multi-layered landscaping, I really appreciate that. I think it'll be a nice addition to the corridor. Appreciate an adaptive reuse of the building. Maybe it's not the ultimate final, final condition at this corner. It's a pretty important corner, but I do think, the applicant has addressed the concerns and it's a nice plan.
Thank you, Frank. Frank Stoner.
I would agree with everything that Frank Hancock just said. I don't have anything to add.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, it's a big improvement over what's there now, and certainly a part of town that could use a little bit more green. So I appreciate that.
Thank you. No, I think it remains a great improvement, and look forward to seeing it go forward. Why don't we turn to the staff recommendations?
Can you see the Word document? Great.
I can, yeah. Does anybody have any suggested revisions?
I don't.
Nor do I. Is there a motion?
I'll move for approval of certificate of appropriateness for ARB 2021-12, 1680 Seminole Trail with conditions listed in the staff report.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Carolyn, would you call the vote?
All right, Mr. Stoner,
Aye.
Mr. Hancock,
Aye.
Mr. Henning,
Aye.
Mr. Vanderwerf.
Aye. Thank you, everyone. We'll move on to the next item, ARB 2021-10, Hollymead Extra Space Storage. Chris, will you make the presentation?
Yes. Are you all viewing the slide screen?
Yes.
Okay. The application I'm presenting on now is the review of architecture and initial site plan to construct a self-storage facility in addition to associated site improvements. The site is located along Worth Crossing, west of the Worth Crossing Regent Street intersection, approximately 365 feet east of the Route 29 entrance corridor and 477 feet north of Tim Boyd Boulevard. The ARB has reviewed no previous proposals for this site. While staff did have a number of comments on the site, none were significant enough to keep us from recommending approval of the initial plan. So I'm going to focus on the 2 points that were listed as primary points of discussion in the staff report. Regarding the design of the building, it displays a minimal connection to the historic architecture of the county, notably in the use of tower-like elements, storefront windows topped with metal canopies, and the variation of materials with heavier ones at the base and lighter ones above. However, much of the brick is proposed at the base of the building, which due to the development adjacent to the entrance corridor would have limited visibility. The ephes in the upper parts of the building will have greater visibility and is less reflective of historic architecture. Revising the mix of wall materials to increase the visibility of the brick would be appropriate. An alternate base material could help as well as reinforce the historic base middle top wall pattern. As viewed from the entrance corridor, human scale is enhanced by the storefront windows with the metal canopies above and cast stone bands at varying heights that run near the base of the elevations. Variation material would typically provide another aspect of human scale, but at the height proposed, approximately 16 feet, the brick is along the elevations, the scale is monumental in nature. Revising the height of the variation in wall materials could help to better establish a sense of human scale. While the tower elements help to connect to historic architecture and provide entrance along the elevation, the lack of tower elements at the east end of the building results in visual imbalance. Tower elements at the northeast and southeast corners of the building would help to balance the design. Above the brick along the north, south, and west elevation, window size ephes panels are shown in a color that's darker than the wall color. Just above the panels, ephes is scored in a regular pattern. These elements attempt to relieve blankness and add interest, but they do not offer sufficient relief given the length of these elevations, 235 feet for the north and south, and about 158 feet for the west. Staff is recommending perspective renderings illustrating the view from both directions of the entrance corridor, with and without landscaping to help clarify the impact of the windowless walls. Lastly, while signage is reviewed and approved with a separate submission, the green color shown for the word extra space on the building appears very intense and may not be appropriate for the entrance corridor. Color samples would be needed for review with the sign application submittal. Staff recommends the changes listed in the staff report to be addressed with the final. Staff recommends the approval of initial site plan with the recommendation listed in the staff report to be addressed with the final site plan submittal. I'd be happy to answer any questions you all may have.
Thank you very much, Chris. Frank Stoner, do you have any questions for staff?
I don't, Dave, thanks.
Sure. Chris, any for you?
Yeah, no, I don't have any questions. Thanks.
Frank Hancock?
No questions. Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, thank you for your presentation, Chris. None for me either. Is there a representative from the applicant?
Yes, sir. This is Brody Glenn with Centennial American Properties. How are you? Good. I guess first off, thanks so much for your time. I know I was actually chairman of the City of Greenville Planning Commission for a long time. Understand the time that you put in, and it's sometimes a thankless job, but one that's important to the city and the county. So thank you for your time for looking at our proposal. I'll give you the kind of overview of what we're doing. We have Barry Bird on here, who's our architect, who can talk about more details. And we've actually been able to update some elevations based on staff's comments that Barry can go through with y'all. But what we're doing, we're gonna have multiple projects that we're working on in Albemarle County. And we're doing these all over the country. What we did was we're creating a multi-story self-storage facility. We knew that we wanted to be in retail type locations. To do that, we knew from a jurisdictional standpoint that we would need to take the gates off the building, all exterior access directly to units off the building. But we also wanted to find a way to solve the problem of having customers be able to come and load and unload secure without having to worry about any kind of safety issues. So we created a 30-foot drive aisle that actually goes through the building. And so the customers will be able to come up to the building either with a punch code or on their telephone, open a glass garage door, and then pull their car in. But that's the concept. It's multi-story, there's no direct access. There's no outside storage. There's no gates. It's made to look and feel like a retail building. Barry, if you want to go through some of the elevations that we've updated.
Sure. Can I share screen, please? All right. Can you hear me okay? And
Yes.
see the screen? Okay, this is what we had proposed originally. Received some good comments from staff. We appreciate those. So we received those toward the end of last week, and so we worked over the weekend to come up with some concepts. One of the things that was addressed was the need for more brick, and we agree with that. So this is a quick elevation where we've brought the brick up, and we're trying to articulate more on a human scale at the lower level. Some indentions in the brick, also at the second floor and then the third floor. This is our revised black and white showing the brick indentions. We've also added another canopy over here. There is no door, but to try to enforce or enrich human scale. And then the north elevation, this is the north elevation. Same detailing. I think that side, maybe we had ignored a little bit, but it probably has a better view than what we thought from the corridor. So what we have done is add the detailing to all sides. The brick is 2 stories on all sides. And then finally, this is our revised rendering with the brick. These elements at the top, even though these aren't windows, we're trying to mimic windows a little bit in a scale that would be appropriate. Those are about 4 foot by 6 feet. So they scale very similar to what one might expect a window to be. We've also eliminated the green from the extra space. I know you're not approving signage here, but we agreed and we've gone with a white and then a dark gray on that. And so those are our response or reflection of the comments. We agree with the comments and want to show here what our interpretation of those comments are.
Great. Well, thank you for the updates and the extra hours over the weekend. Any further presentation before I invite folks' questions?
No, sir. We've got our civil engineer and our planner the Zoom call as well. So as y'all, we get the questions, we can hopefully have the team on board to answer any questions that may come up.
Great, thank you. Chris, do you have any questions for the applicant?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Frank Stoner?
No, I don't have any questions either. Dave, thanks for the presentation. This is great.
Frank Hancock?
Yeah, thank you for the presentation and the update. Just one quick question, the kind of accent ephes color, the beige, a little darker color, is that gone now to the new scheme?
At the top, are you talking about at the top?
Yeah, it's just looking at the old renderings you had.
Yes.
Actually, it was underneath the signage, it was a darker
Yes.
ephes. That's been removed.
We've lightened that up a little bit, yes.
Okay. That was all. Thank you.
Great. I guess my main question, I appreciate the effort to further articulate the wall and the brickwork. Is there any relief proposed in the plane of brick at the blocked in openings that are suggested?
Yes, we anticipate an 1.5 to 2 inch recess in the brick at that location.
Okay, thank you. And then let's see, I guess I'm reminded of our recent review of another storage facility where part of the comments concerned sort of the corner elements and how they were either more different or more alike. And I think this is somewhat similar. The corners are fairly similar. Have you given any thought to either making them more similar or conversely more unique?
We're open to either. We felt like this corner obviously is the entrance, and we felt like that should be the strongest element. And by making the windows a little more traditional, a little stronger in appearance, we felt like that, one of the things in design is to always try to make the entrance prominent so that the eye goes right there. And that was our intent. I think we could make a case for either one. If the review board has a preference, we're certainly open to that.
We certainly could make those windows if you'd rather us make them straight like the other two towers on the top level. We can do that if that's what your preference would be.
Well, thank you. I don't know that I have one, but I'm just interested to know more about the thinking behind it. Great. I don't think I have any further questions. Carolyn, are there members of the public wishing to comment?
No, sir, there sure isn't.
Great. Well, Frank Stoner, would you kick off discussion?
Sure. If I can get back to, there we go. Can you guys hear me? Yeah. I think the changes they made are address. I think most of the staff comments and certainly address my concerns about the original design. I don't really have a strong preference as it relates to these upper windows and the comment made about kind of making these corners more similar. I think I'd probably defer to the applicant in that I think either is probably acceptable in my view anyway. So I don't have, I really don't have anything else, any other comments at this time.
Thank you, Frank. Frank Hancock.
Thank you, and thank you to the applicant. I think this is a really nice proposal, and I think you made a really nice presentation and really appreciate the updates. I think, the only one thing is it's a shame it's kind of far away from the corridor. I don't know that you get to appreciate some of the detailing as you move up and down the corridor. But I think it's really nice, as what we're looking at on the screen now, this updated rendering. Yeah, I like the brick coming up. I like the windows. I don't know if the relief comes through in this rendering, I think, but as you described it, I think that will be really nice. No, I don't have any other comments. I think it's an appropriate, in materials and in building elements and how it's broken down in the scale. For a self-storage building, I think it's really nice. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. Chris?
Yeah, thank you. And I appreciate the changes made also, which I think, particularly given the distance from the corridor and the fact that there are some buildings between this building and the corridor itself, bringing the brick up on most of the building up a floor makes it more visible from the corridor. And I think, the other measures that you've made to kind of articulate those facades are pretty effective. So I also worry that the detailing in the brick may not read from a distance, but I think up close, it's going to be apparent and pretty nice. I think it's overall appropriate and looks good. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Yeah, like my fellow board members, I appreciate the updates. I think they do a great deal to address the staff comments, which I shared those concerns. I think it's acceptable to me as presented. Certainly, if there's room to increase the depth of the reveal or maybe explore a subtle contrast in brick color between the between the filled openings and the wall, that might accentuate the effectiveness of those measures even without as much relief. But again, I think it's a good step forward. Let's see, why don't we turn then to staff's recommendations?
Are you able to see the Word document?
Yeah.
So this is another application that came in as an initial site plan with the preliminary architectural design. So we have that 4-part initial plan recommendation with a recommendation for approval of the initial plan without conditions, and then the list of comments for the next submittal. The first 3, the ones that I've highlighted in green here, are the ones that were related to the architectural design that the applicants addressed today with revised elevations. I've added number 10. We can obviously alter this language just to sort of track through the changes, suggesting adding something like the revised elevations presented in the meeting sufficiently address comments 1 through 3. Or some variation of that.
Thank you, Margaret. Any questions or suggestions from other board members? Yeah, I agree. I think item 10 seems to be a good way to deal with the resolution of items 1 through 3. Great. Do we have a motion then for this 4-part?
So would we delete items 1 through 3 or?
I think since they were in the staff report, we would leave them. Go ahead, Margaret.
It helps just to track the changes as they're made through the process. Since the staff report didn't address the revised elevations, they were just presented today. This helps us.
I see. Okay.
Great. With that clarification, is there a motion?
So I'll move to forward the recommendations outlined in the staff report to the agent for the site review committee amend it as follows and add item 10. The revised elevations presented in the meeting sufficiently address comments 1 through 3.
Thank you, Chris. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, Mr. Stoner,
Aye.
Mr. Hancock,
Aye.
Mr. Henningsen,
Aye.
Mr. Vanderwerf.
Aye. Great, thank you, and thank you to the applicant. Let's see, our next item is a work session for item ARB 2020-108, Airport Road Sheets.
You recall the ARB recommended approval of the final site plan for the site during the December 7, 2020 ARB meeting, pending staff approval of several conditions, including revisions to the design of the store building to establish more coordinated material transitions, less of a utilitarian appearance on the airport road elevation, and an entrance tower with a prominent form. Revisions were to be reviewed by the ARB in a work session prior to final approval. To orient you on the slide, the architectural design from December 7 is on the left, and the design for being reviewed today is on the right. Staff has completed a cursory review of a revised submittal and notes the following changes related to condition 1. The tower element maximum height has been increased by 1 foot from 31 feet 6 inches to 32 feet 6 inches. The entrances along the elevations of this element have been centered, and the stone veneer has been added to the corner. The proposed signs on the east and south have been shifted to center within the element and the entrances below. And the canopy along the bump out visible from Airport Road has been revised to awning. However, no changes have been made to the material transitions to establish a more coordinated appearance. The action the ARB wants to take today is to approve the architectural design as presented, to approve it with additional conditions, or to ask for additional revisions to be reviewed at a future ARB meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Frank Stoner, any questions?
No, I don't have any questions.
Well, actually, I think I've jumped ahead. I think I'd like to invite the applicant as well to make their presentation.
Good afternoon, Chairman, members of the board, and staff. It's good to see you all again. Can you hear me okay? All right, great. This is Lee May. I'm an engineering permit manager with Sheets. We also have our architect, Tom Columbus, Jamie Gerhardt with real estate, and several other members of our team on standby. I'll share my screen real quick. Multiple screens. Let me make sure I share the right one. Okay. All right. As Chris mentioned, our objective here was to make the tower more prominent. So what we did is initially, or the previous elevation that you saw in December, our storefront went all the way and wrapped the corner of the tower. So in order to give it a little more, a heavier, more prominent appearance, we decided to balance that elevation by putting stone on the corner and thus reducing the amount of glass in storefront. And that view can be seen from the top elevation as well as this lower elevation. Top elevation is parallel to and faces Route 29. The lower elevation is parallel to and faces Airport Road. As a reminder, because these are two-dimensional, did snip just that corner of the floor plan. As you can see, that this is not a single plane. The tower does bump out from the main bulk plane elevation of the either elevation on either side. We also, as Chris mentioned, we raised the tower again to make it a little more prominent, so it has grown in height as well. On the elevation facing Airport Road. We thought in order to make it a little softer and tie in better with the balance of the building, instead of having a flat canopy over this glass window and storefront, as well as the door that is around the corner or around the side entrance there on that bump out, we converted that to the awning that matches those over the windows. We also looked at, of course, in this dimension, this left side of this elevation does protrude further from the main line of the building. We looked at extending the stone out to that corner. When we did that, what it did was it really seemed to overpower or dilute the prominence of the tower, and the tower, of course, being more prominent by its lighter, different material. So we refrained from doing that. Some of the other changes we made is we also, for the ice merchandisers, we picked a very neutral color. Didn't want to go with dark bronze because that was probably a little bit too much contrast. So we picked a more natural earth tone to kind of balance with the stone in the wainscot, as well as some of the architectural features. And that's generally the significance of those changes. There was I believe, a comment about the sign. The intent of the sign may not reflect that way in the renderings. It is one single shade of red, as well as the second color being white, and the third color would be a little bit of accent with black. So it would be red, white, and black would be the three colors it's limited to. And then that's also another change with this elevation versus the last one you saw. We were using gooseneck lights, and this would not be an internally illuminated sign. It would be lit externally from the gooseneck lights. And with that, that's generally our changes. With that, I hope that you would agree that this is a much improved and would allow us to move forward.
Great, thank you, Lee. Are there any other presentations from the applicant you'd like us to consider?
That's what I had, believing, this is a workshop for the elevations.
Of course.
Would be happy to, I believe we have a new member here. I'd be happy to do a quick overview of the site plan and some of the other elements, if you'd like.
Chris, I'll leave that to you.
Yeah, no, I think I reviewed the initial application materials that came in the packet, so I think I'm relatively familiar. But if I have any questions or anything as we go through, I'll just ask.
All right, thank you, Chris. Well, great. Well, Frank Stoner, any questions or discussions? Frank, you may be muted if you're speaking.
Yep. No, I'm just a question about the material transitions, particularly at the drive-through and at the other end of the building. Do those stone elements bump out proud of the brick, or are they in the same plane?
They're almost in the same plane. Just because of material thickness, there's a slight difference, but it's only an inch or two at most, just from a little bit of variance in the depth of the material. So I would say generally it's in the same plane.
Okay. That was my only question.
Okay. Yeah. Frank Hancock, do you have any questions or points of discussion?
Maybe a point of discussion. Thank you for the presentation, Lee, and outlining the changes. Just looking at the main entrance, the stone on either end, where it comes to ground, it seems a little thin. Like if you look at that versus the tower element on the other end of the building, what are the widths there? And I apologize if they're in the packet. I'm just looking at the color elevations.
Frank, are you referring to on this right or upper right elevation?
Yeah, so just looking at, the entrance tower element on the right side of the building in comparison with the main entrance, how the stone, kind of ends, what the width is on each one.
The width right here. Okay, I'll grab that real quick. Apologize, I didn't bring a dimension plan here. I was trying, what I found was, I'm sorry about this, my screen seems to be very slow, so I was trying to minimize what I had open. I can grab that dimension real quick. So on this side, I believe you're referring to this area, like when it would be equal on both sides. This is, it's pretty close. It's about 32 inches. And on the tower, let's grab that real quick. That's pretty much equal, about 32 inches. I might have grabbed the wrong line there. So they're about equal.
Okay. And then the one on the right side, that's, maybe this was Frank's question earlier, but that's not standing proud of the wall. That's all flush, except for maybe a change where you go from brick to stone, a slight variation.
Right, correct. On the right side of this front elevation, that's correct. That's in the same plane, as well as on the left side of the airport road elevation, the same there. And now the height is slightly higher, just to make it a little, to distinguish it a bit and just provide a little more visual entrance. Again, the tower is meant to kind of stand more proud and protrudes from the plane of the building.
It does come out. It's only about 4 inches at the most on the right. The one on the left is like 8 to 16 inches away from the building for the tower to come out.
Okay. And I think that'll help. I mean, and just looking at this rendering, it just seems, thinner or skinnier on the left side at the main entrance in comparison to the tower element on the right. That's just what my eye was drawn to. But in thinking about it in reality, that's projected out, I think will help that to give it a little more heft as it comes to the ground. That's really the only thing I noticed was, to me, that was worth commenting on. I think everything else looks good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. Let's see, Chris, any questions or discussion points?
Yeah, no real, well, one question, there's the tower elements have this stone facing, and you said about 4 inches proud of the brick.
On the right side, the main tower is more though. If you look
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Where it comes out proud, is it flush with that base element, or is that base flush with the brick above? Like, if you follow my meaning there.
You mean like the wainscot?
Yeah.
Across there. It is back towards the brick.
Okay. All right. My only question, and I thought the improvements from the last time were all good. I didn't have any concerns about it.
The stone is actually a bearing element. It can act like a brick, and you can build actually on top of it. It's not the old, if you pardon the expression, the lick 'em stick 'em stuff. It's not that. It's the thickness of a brick, and it has a bearing capacity to it.
Okay.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you, Lee and Tom, for the presentation. I think it is an improvement to have the stone at the corner, and it's certainly a more traditional sort of visually apparent support. I appreciate Frank Hancock's observation about the thickness of the piers. I don't know if there is a way to make them a bit thicker. They seem a little bit attenuated now, but that's a subtlety. Lee, in terms of the vestibule plan that's highlighted, it doesn't look like there is stone at the corner between the two doors. Is there another plan that shows that, or is?
I'm sorry, my apologies. I think I snapped the previous version, but actually the storefront would just be a little bit smaller, and it would be balanced with the stone there on the corner.
Okay, great. I guess so. I appreciate the incorporation of the comments about the tower. I guess my remaining concerns still are, I guess, about the drive-through projecting bay and just the resolution of that south end of that bay. I think, between the stone at the drive-through and then the low service door and then the eroded corner, it feels like that corner isn't quite resolved. And so do you have any thoughts about how that corner of the building might be brought to a greater resolution? Because I agree, I think the east facing facade in the corner now are I think coming into good focus.
Was that for me?
Certainly, yes. Yeah, you or whomever probably.
Yeah, so when we looked at other options for this, and even on the prior submittal, prior to this one, again, we wanted to balance keeping the tower as the prominent feature, and that's what your eye was drawn to, and that's where the customer's focus went to, and for visual. The more we looked at, make this taller, or maybe extending material some more, it does start to compete with the tower, and kind of was viewing our primary task to get that tower to stand real proud and tall.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good point. And I guess towards that end, I know we had asked about the possibility of extending the stone. I wonder conversely at that bay, would it be worth revisiting the question of the stone and maybe consider extending the brick around to the drive-through just to quiet that end a bit? And similarly to the tower, the way that you've brought the stone down at the corner, would it make sense to try and to explore resolving the corner of that bay in masonry and treating that glazing as a punched opening rather than an eroded corner?
I think what Lee's trying to say is when I go back and see if this is our fourth submittal, go back to our second submittal, we had no stone on the left side of the faces South Airport Road. There was a little stone around the drive-through, and the request was, well, that's out of balance. So we took a little, to going from number 2 to 3, right? That's what that was based on the board's recommendation. So we feel good that we went from 2 to 3. Are we talking about, I hope we're not talking about going back from 3 to 2, because 2 to 3 made sense. Hey, we like how there's a stone on the other 3 corners that are visible. So let's incorporate a little bit, but not too much, because then it takes away from the tower. So I think what Lee's trying to say is, boy, we really like where 3 attempts to take all the feedback from the board here and give it a little more stone than 2, which was no stone compared to 1, and feel good about that is our best effort there on that side. The difference between 3 and 4, as the task was from the comment 1, was make the materials more harmonious. So we took away the MAPES canopy above the door in 3 and said, okay, we'll do all awning on that side, not to introduce that MAPES canopy above that door. That way we also can say, you know what? Another way to highlight the tower is the use of the MAPES canopy, distinguishing it. Hey, here are the things that the tower gets that the other corners or entrances don't get. It gets a MAPES canopy. It gets bumped out, or it's a different plane. It gets the extra stone, whereas the other 2 or 3 corners do not. Does that make sense?
Right.
Yes, yeah, and Jamie, no, I think appreciate the progression and incorporating the stone. I think the issue that has been open from the beginning and never really addressed in plan, which I think we've been trying to dance around in elevation, is the projection of the takeout bay beyond the primary plane of the building. And so, I think that still remains. And so that my question about, is there a way to quiet that bay? Again, last time we talked about, can you make the tower bigger and the bay stone so that you basically have sort of an ABA kind of rhythm of the width of materials and create some more planar relationship between those. I think in this case, the tower hasn't been made as large or as coplanar with that bay as we had contemplated. And so I wondered, in that context, is there a way to quiet that projecting bay down further in a way that the tower shows up more, and maybe without a canopy or an awning at all, so that it becomes more mute and background.
More like the top two on
Yeah,
that
but
corner.
but perhaps without the canopy and perhaps with some closure of the corner. I'm just speculating, but I don't know, Chris or my other board members, if you have any thoughts about it. I know from the initial staff report, there was just concern about how that bay was more prominent and proximate to the entrance corridor. I do think that the hierarchy of the tower is improved, and I just still wrestling with how to situate it relative to that southwest corner.
Yeah, seeing these older versions where the main tower had that eroded corner, this secondary one seemed a little bit more kind of in line with that. And, I like the addition of the stone corner in the primary tower. So I'm, wondering if that might be a good thing in this secondary corner, if it doesn't present some kind of functional problem. I'm not sure what the function of that corner is.
Would you be willing, we would be willing to eliminate the stone on this side. I mean, could you do that as a conditional approval? And we could just keep everything the same except removing, again, I don't know if you can see my pointer, on this current elevation, we just take that stone and just leave the wainscot there. Now, I will point out, I hate to leave this drawing if we want to refer to it because it's slow to paint, but I can go back. Remember, we have stone, and this second elevation kind of shows the side view of it. Remember, we put stone around the drive-through window to help break up that elevation. So then that's what brought the stone, and I think it was at that second meeting, okay, we like what you did on the drive-through side of the building. Now you kind of just stop the stone at the corner. So let's wrap it around and make it a little more complete. And that's how we got to version 3 here, where it's not only on that, it wraps the corner. It's really what it does. Now that can be eliminated and we go back to the original elevation, but we're just hoping to move forward. But we certainly could do that as a condition of the approval. That would be preferred. We're flexible there. Like I can pull up the drive-through side elevations for a refresher. Which would be this one.
And as you're pulling that up, Lee, can you or perhaps Chris could just remind me to what extent the car wash and landscaping are foregrounded to that elevation?
Yeah, so the car wash will block a part of the view of this drive-through elevation, especially depending on your vantage point from Airport Road. But a lot of that view, it'll be as you're coming down Airport Road or down that slight grade toward Route 29, first thing you'll see will be this drive-through window corner, and then your view will grow. But the car wash will block a lot of the view from the back of that elevation. And then this lower elevation is the one that is if you were on Route 29 at the Canopies, it would be the right side of the building. And this faces really just the drive-through lane. And then beyond that, there's a slope or a little bit of a grade. And then the stormwater management pump for VDOT is on the beyond that. This stone on the, to break up that elevation, we enhance the drive-through windows with the stone feature around it. And that's why the next progression was, okay, don't stop it dead at the corner, wrap it around. And that's how we ended up with the stone on that elevation. Right here. Come on back. Computers, I don't know if it's a graphics card issue. It just seems to be painting these slow. Bear with it. There. So then there's the other corner, that drive-through corner.
I know, obviously, this has gotten a lot of consideration. So in terms of my fellow board members, do you have thoughts about this element?
I share your concern, Dave, about that southwest corner. While I appreciate the effort to kind of highlight or break up that drive-through side, I think what was sort of intriguing or appealing was the notion of wrapping that stone kind of all the way around that projection. I understand that is maybe too much and starts to compete with the primary tower. I don't feel like that stone feature at the southwest corner adds anything. I'd probably be comfortable eliminating it entirely. If you want to, the other drive-through further back, I'm not sure is even visible behind the car wash. I think it would simplify this corner. I continue to have concerns about the material transitions without having any kind of bump out. I understand the stone is structural and that's why you want to keep it in plane. But for that reason, I'd probably vote to eliminate this stone on the southwest corner.
No, I mean, I think in partly because of the good work you've done, clarifying the character of the tower, it feels like if maybe there were less going on at this corner, it would allow the tower to, to have that much more prominence. And I do wonder if in the process of doing that, if you could explore how to get the service door and that glazed opening to maybe relate to one another and compose, more with more resolution in that projecting bay of the service area.
I'm not sure I quite follow this door, which is
well, yeah, and in the south elevation. So, for example, in the east-facing elevation, if it were possible to bring down some portion of the brick there at the corner and still retain that door opening, which I know is part of folks coming and going from sort of the takeout area.
Right.
And then to turn the corner with brick and to situate that glazing, perhaps in that service door, maybe that service door with a panel above it so that those openings relate to one another better in scale and are more unified in appearance. And I'm sorry to belabor it. It's just because this sort of service function part of the building, which is not as ordered as the rest of it is prominent. And I think that's the only reason I'm asking you to spend this time on it. And I appreciate all the time that has been spent on it.
Yeah. That would be brick there. Am I following correctly?
I just worry that we're back to, we got awfully close last time. And Valerie or someone help if I am out of line. We got awfully close last time in comment number 1, prescribing on how to accomplish something. And the collective group backed off and said, okay, here's the task. Now, if we say we just didn't do the task, but we're having a hard time, or at least I'm personally having a hard time hearing it looks good, but then hearing here's an idea and here's an idea. And I realize it's a work session, but we're proud of we're proud of the feedback we've received from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 and how we each time are hopefully going in the right direction. it seems now we're back to prescribing on how to accomplish one. And I'm just imploring the group, what's your thoughts on what we propose? Because we really would like to move forward with this project with one of the best looking sheet stores that will have ever built.
Indeed, no, I think there has been good progress. I agree, this is a work session. Perhaps it's been mistaken to suggest possible ways of achieving it. I think consistent throughout has been, how do we solve this southwest projecting bay? We've offered some alternatives. Those are not necessarily the ones that are fully realized here. I'm still just asking whether there's a subtle way to work on the southwest corner to make it more resolved. It is facing Airport Road, and it would be good for it to be better resolved.
Can I ask a clarifying question as a non-design professional?
Certainly.
I want to make sure I understand exactly what your concern is, Mr. Chairman, and those that have echoed it, that southwest corner, the amount of stone that's there now compared to prior iterations, that although it maybe in isolation looks nice, that it somehow detracts from the hierarchy of the tower. Is that
Yes,
right?
Right. And I think that's a fair description, Ms. Long. I think that basically we've been consistent in looking for a way that the hierarchy of this airport facing road facade could be composed in a way that resolves well. I think Jamie's correct to point out in earlier discussions, the stone seemed like a good way to break up the scale of the elevation of the drive-through, but I think looking at its consequences at the Southwest Bay in terms of how that doesn't seem to resolve in a simple way, I think detracts from the overall hierarchy on this facade.
Okay, so would it help if it just didn't wrap around quite as far? It seems like it looks nice from the elevation that faces west to the way it frames the two drive-through windows in a fairly even width, but that if it just barely wrapped around that corner, would that quiet it down a little bit right there?
It might, and then I think in terms of the hierarchy of this south-facing facade, if it were fundamentally three parts, the projecting bay of the sort of service zone of the drive-through, meaning that width from there to that corner of the window that's carved out of it, and then the middle bay that has the awning, and then the corner, right? If it were basically a three-part facade, and if each of those parts were composed and resolved, and I think 2 out of the 3 are right now, if that makes sense.
Okay.
The middle portion is composed and resolved. The corner portion is composed and resolved, and it's really just the southwest corner that needs to be brought into some kind of unity. Right now, it's 3 or 4 disparate parts.
And I think my concern may be a little bit different. For me, the transition of materials without any corner in the building, without the material transition doesn't relate to any architectural feature of the building in plan view, and so it feels completely contrived. And because it doesn't bump out, it's just it's a facade that doesn't seem to make sense. And for that reason, for me, I would prefer to see it go away, because I don't think it adds anything to the building. And to Date's point, I think it detracts from the sort of dominance of the primary tower at the corner. It's a drive-through. It's not a primary feature of the building. And I think wrapping stone part way, just doesn't really.
Just for illustration, something to that effect. That would be brick instead of stone.
Right. Yeah. That's just my perspective, and others on the board may feel differently. I just feel like we're trying too hard. I agree with you guys. I think the building looks great. I don't think adding more stone in a way that feels contrived is really enhancing the building.
We're not opposed to eliminating that. Could that be a condition? And then I can revisit the rear elevation.
Yeah, I would think so. And I would say, I think probably you could also bring the cornice height to one height. You know, if it's all brick, there's no need to crenellate that.
To bump it out, yeah.
Okay, and then for the drive-through, wrapping around to the drive-through, I'll zoom in a little bit there. Your thoughts, would you still keep the stone on these elevations, or we're flexible if you'd rather just make that brick, since that is kind of it's not even really secondary. It's facing the car wash. So we could just bring this back to wainscot.
Right, at least for me, I mean, to the extent that the canopies are there and that the coining and the coursing of the brick that isn't present in the other bays continues, I think that's sufficient.
Okay. All right.
I would agree.
Yeah, so do I.
So these, this will all be brick in this view. Not that I'm not a draftsman here, but just
sure.
Just
no.
A little bit
I appreciate it. No,
visual.
it makes it great. Yeah, it's helpful to have a chance to agree on what we're looking at.
Yeah, and we'll make that little so you can see through it.
And then on the one on the corner,
that could be brick as well and wrap at the same elevation. I don't know if others agree, but that would quiet that end down.
Mm-hmm.
We just have
and certainly, appreciate, Jamie, your observations that we've, maybe come back around on this one. Sometimes it's an exploration. Appreciate very much your and Lee's and everybody's work to work through it together. So I guess turning again to the south elevation, the last thing that I would think would help quiet it would be if there is some way to better compose the service door and the corner window and then the grease storage box so that at that southwest corner they relate to one another more. I don't know, Chris or Frank, if you share that observation or thought. It would be nice if there were a way to compose that.
Yeah, I feel like turning the canopy around the corner kind of draws attention to that area a little bit. And, I don't want to get too far into like prescribing, what to do. It's just more an observation that I think without the eroded corner at the main entrance, it might help to not have an eroded corner in this location. But, I'm not familiar with the practical concerns that you're having to deal with in plan, and realizing that I'm coming to this whole process rather late in the game too. So I would just take that suggestion with a grain of salt.
Yeah. So as a customer views the building, they pull into a parking space, we would prefer to draw them into the main entrance here at the corner. It's double doors, it's a big vestibule, and just for the flow of the store, it works best if the majority of customers enter at that point. This door on the side, while it is open to the public, it is really a primary function of it is for if with our increasing drive-through numbers, it's a way to it's connected very close, and I could show you maybe a floor plan if that would help explain it a little bit. When the prep area in our kitchen is right here, and the customer pickup inside is at this counter, but when we have people going outside, it gives them a way to access those cars as well. And in addition, we do have a service door, but this tends to be a preferred path out to this parking spaces that are right here facing this patio area. So it's probably more of a visual thing where we're trying to not take away from the prominence of that tower, and that's more of just a secondary access point or egress.
Thank you for going over those concerns, Lee. So I guess I wondered, I agree with Chris's comment that I think wrapping the canopy around the corner and eroding the corner kind of heightens the difference of that element, especially now that all the other corners are sort of closed. So if there were a way, the door obviously that's there functionally can stay still while closing that corner in brick. And again, if there's a way just to compose that end elevation so that the service door, the window, and awning, if there's an awning there, and the grease element feel more composed in that projecting bay, I think that would bring this to the best conclusion.
Lee, can I try to share my screen?
Sure. I was going to bring the previous version of that corner, but yes, go ahead, Jamie. I think you can just hit share at the bottom.
You might have to.
Or do I have to? Oh, I have to stop share. Okay. There you go.
This is going back an elevation, but it may be worthy in a way to say, if this stone is eliminated in this area and we revert to the Mapes canopy as a less intense treatment, less intense canopy, and not force it to go around the corner, there may be a way to add a Mapes canopy with a similar type of structure supports to give the three components. Mapes canopy that is slightly afront of the rest, right in here, this part will bump out, is planned to be bump out. We assign that bump out two Mapes canopies, one that goes around the corner and one for enhancement. The middle third is recessed. It gets the windows and the awnings. And then the tower, again, this is the old one, but the tower then is the third and final higher stone. And, again, it could be a way. Brick and Mapes canopy, bumped closer to the customer, brick window seating, awning, middle section, tower section, right, and we might be able to get to the 1, 2, and 3. Tom, Columbus, or Lee, just correct me, but I think we can do that.
Yes.
Yeah, I think you may be onto something there, Jamie. I think maybe, I don't know if it would be possible just to do a single Mapes canopy or awning that was just facing south and somehow collect the door, the grease, and the window under that, close the corner with brick, and not have anything turning the corner there.
I guess it kind of would go out that way because this stone would be reduced or eliminated.
Right, it'll just be brick. Yeah. So, and again, I apologize for veering into the prescriptive, just trying to help, but I think y'all are on the right track with that.
So if we do that to the team, how can we, conditionally approve that so that while these work sessions and meetings have been helpful, that we can say, okay, maybe something, we take a screenshot of that last screen, or can we verbalize that to say?
No, I appreciate. No, Jamie, I agree. I think we could. I believe we could include some language in a certificate of appropriateness to be confirmed by staff based on the discussion today. Margaret, would you concur?
I'll share my screen.
Thank you. You're way ahead.
Can you see the Word document?
Yes, thank you.
So I've just been typing while you've all been talking. What this basically says is it's a motion to approve the revised architectural design with 3 changes. 1, eliminate the stone above the base at the southwest corner, lower the cornice height to match the main wall height. 2, eliminate the stone above the base on the west elevation, again, lower the cornice height. 3, revise the south-facing elevation of the southwest corner to compose the service door, awning, grease storage, and glazed opening to relate to each other with a coordinated appearance. The use of a single mace canopy may be appropriate.
I think you've translated the discussion very well from my perspective. Margaret, Chris, or others. Frank, would you add anything? Okay.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, it looks good to me as well.
Great. All right, Jamie, Lee, Tom.
Yes, I kind of cut and pasted it real quick while you were reading that, and it looks good.
Well, great. Well, our thanks again for the work session and for all the efforts leading up to it. Appreciate the collaboration. Anything else before we go for a motion? Great. So is there a motion?
I'll move to approve the revised architectural design with the following changes, 1 through 3.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Carolyn, would you call the vote?
Yes. Mr. Stoner,
Aye.
Mr. Hancock,
Aye.
Mr. Henningsen,
Aye.
Mr. Vanderwerf.
Aye. Great. Thank you, and thank you again to everyone for your time on this matter.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
All right, so Margaret, I believe our other business includes 2 items. I know we'll try and wrap this up quickly. First, we need to address the schedule for reviewing the entrance corridors for the design guidelines. Margaret, do you happen to have the current spreadsheet available?
So I've started to make a few changes here. Let's see. Can you see the spreadsheet? Okay. So on the first meeting in January and the second meeting in January, we covered 250 West and Route 240. First meeting in February, we covered Route 151. And we canceled the second meeting in February. Now we're all off track. Things got to. So, and we're not doing anything today. So we're up to the, so March 15th meeting.
So I am not here on the 15th. So if it's possible, I could swap with Fred, or maybe Fred could do.
Actually, right. Yes, because Fred, sorry to interrupt, but yeah, so here actually, I think Fred is going to be prepared to do the March 15th and do the bypass.
Okay, great.
So
I still owe everybody a return to Emmett Ivy, or Ivy from Emmett to the bypass. And you can do that after Fred does the 29-250 if you want. And then I think maybe it would make sense to put in 1 or 2 work sessions to synthesize recommendations out of the Western study, so that we might be looking more towards May, really, to then start either looking east or north or south. I don't know if anybody has a nomination for which direction of the compass we should point to.
I don't, and unfortunately, guys, I have to jump off. I was supposed to be in a 4 o'clock meeting.
Yeah. Well, appreciate you sticking
Yeah.
with it, and my apologies for lengthening the last item.
No, yeah, no problem.
Thanks.
Thanks. See you.
I will revise the schedule based on the conversation we just, I'll send it back out to everybody.
Okay.
We have
Great.
time.
Okay.
Direction is next. Maybe we can do that at next month's meeting.
Okay. Thank you very much, Margaret. And may I ask how the agenda is looking for the next meeting?
For March 15th, we'll make up for today's lengthy meeting. There are no regular review items at this time, so it will just be the entrance quarter discussion.
Okay, great. Okay, last other business we have is adoption of minutes. Is there a motion to adopt the minutes of February 1st, 2021?
I move to adopt the minutes.
Great, is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Carol, would you call the vote?
Mr. Hancock,
Aye.
Mr. Henningsen,
Aye.
Mr. Vanderwerf.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carolyn. Yeah. Yeah, and thank you for all the current minutes too. Okay, so our next meeting date is March 15th. It's a virtual meeting. Will Chris and Frank be present?
Yes.
Okay, I expect to be present too, and then we expect Fred will be as well, right? So, okay, well, we'll look forward to reconvening then. Thank you very much, everybody, for all your time this afternoon.
Thank you all.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
All right, we're adjourned.
See you.